Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. I am here on the East Coast, the wrong coast, 3,000 miles from home. I'm here visiting my mom here in Connecticut, and I just wanted to make a video alerting people or in support of a comic bookworm's idea of a comic book community noob tag, much like the booktube newbie tag. It could, if it takes off, it could be a great way to for newer people who are interested in the comic book community and starting channels to introduce themselves to everybody and to perhaps get a little more attention to their channel on their initial burst forward on YouTube. So it seems to work really well for BookTube. So NammaN came up with 10 questions for the tag, and I'm going to go through them quickly. I've got I've been doing this for 12 years. I don't want to pretend I'm a newbie or anything, but I'll just give a quick shot at these questions in support of the idea. And NammaN says anyone can do this, whether you're a noob or not. But hopefully, going forward, that will establish it as a good option for people starting up their channel. So he asks, Chuck, question one, why did you start your comic book channel? And way back when I started it, because I just wanted to talk to people about comics. And there were some people on YouTube doing that. And it was casual and fun. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And that's probably the reason for a lot of people, but not everyone. And I always was happy keeping it kind of lo-fi. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to the comic book community? And when I started my channel, I was not thinking about being unique, but certainly I was thinking about fun. Let's just say, what are some fun things you can bring to the comic book community? Um, you know, passion for comics. Uh, I don't know. It's a hard question. Okay, some people will probably be able to answer it better than me. Um, what are you most excited about for this new channel? And back then, I was most excited just to be part of the conversation. And it was so exciting when I got a few subscriptions and a few comments. And back then, maybe the YouTube algorithm worked better. I A number of people who I already respected as cool YouTubers started commenting on my channel really early on. And it was very gratifying. So I hope everyone can have that experience. Um, when is the first ever comic you got or purchased and read? And that would be Avengers 93, which I got in August of 1971 on a family holiday in Vermont. I've talked about it before. I'll leave it at that because I want to move on to these questions. But obviously, if you're a newbie, you can go into a lot of detail, or anyone who wants to go into a lot of detail on that. Um, what kind of comic books do you like to read and collect? I like a wide variety of genres. Like a lot of people in the US, I started with superhero comics. Still love those, think those are great. Science fiction, horror. Um, a little bit of slice of life is enough for me. I am, enjoy European comics when I can get them. I enjoy some manga, not a lot, but some is really great. Some that I've found is really great, like Junju Ito. Um, have you ever speculated on a comic book? If not, why not? If so, what was your speculation book and why? I haven't really exactly speculated. When I was a kid starting out, by the time I was 12 or something, I was aware of a comic books gaining value. And in fact, the fact that comic books could become valuable was a way to convince some adults in my life that it wasn't a total waste of time to get comics. Like, it made them more important. So I think that's one of the reasons people like to speculate on comics, because, hey, these things I love actually are valuable. But anyway, so I thought my Jack Kirby comics from DC, the Fourth World and Commandy comics, were going to become the most valuable comics ever. They were going to be up there with uh, early Batman and early Superman and everything. And I was totally wrong. A few years later, I found them in dollar bins or 50-cent bins or whatever they were back in 1979, and realized, oh, it doesn't really work that way. Just because you think they're great, they're not going to necessarily become valuable. And I just put the whole idea of making money out of comics out of my head. And so I haven't really speculated since. And I think for me personally, I enjoy comics more without worrying about their value. I mean, occasionally the topic comes up just for fun when other, especially when talking with other people in the community. But to me, I just choose how much is this comic worth to me to have for myself, not to sell for the future. So a really cool comic I might spend $15 on. Often I'm just happy getting a $1, $4, $5 comic and leaving it at that. But once or twice I've bought some more expensive comics just because I really wanted them in my collection. By that I mean like a $100 comic, $150 comic. Um, do you collect slab, raw, or both? Not interested in slabs. And I guess if I were interested in speculation, that might make the slabs seem more interesting. But for me as a collector, I want comic books that I can open and look through. I can read them or just experience them as I flip through the pages. So that's very important to me. So no slabs. Um, Question number 8 is, have you ever traded comic books? If not, why not? If so, what was the first trade you remember? I didn't really have other kids who liked comics most of the time in my life to trade comics with. I might have traded with my brother a few times, but it was me sort of talking him into trading with me because he didn't really care. Um, but I did occasionally, like in one or two schools I was at, I would find a kid who had a box full of comics, and we would lend each other our comics so we could read them, and then we would give them back. And I think we did give them back. And now with comic book community, I don't really trade, but people give each other gifts. Here in Connecticut, I got to have a fantastic meetup with Higgy Pop Comics, and I gifted him some comics, he gifted me some, and that was really cool. And I thought the comics I was giving him were really cool, and he gave me some cool stuff, so that was really fun. Um, Number 9 is, do you collect golden, silver, bronze, copper, modern, and or all? Why and what or why not? I collect a lot of bronze and silver comics. Those are the most fun for me to collect. I collect quite a bit of copper too. Modern comics, yes, but maybe with less enthusiasm, or I'm a little pickier. But I enjoy reading a lot of modern indies, and then so I collect a wide variety. I also like to collect the indies of the 80s. I don't know whether those are Copper Age comics or what you would call them. The only era I don't have much of, but I would like to get more, is Golden Age comics. So, and that's in terms of American comics. I mean, I'm also interested in collecting other comics, European or whatever, British comics and such. We're down to question number 10. Tell us about your first comic book when you're with your first personal story tied to it. Well, that very first comic book has a personal story to it, uh, mostly related to the fact that my parents told me that that was the one comic I would ever own. And so I became obsessed with it, and I copied drawings out of it and studied all the ads and studied all the, Stanley Soapbox stuff. And luckily, my parents weren't as strict as I thought they were, and eventually I got to get more comics. Um, but that comic spurred my interest in drawing, and of course the interest in comics. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. The other thing is, he asked for some shout outs. I just will shout out some channels that I enjoy, that I don't think I've shouted out before. I'm not saying they have to do the comic book newbie tag. I want to shout out Anachronic Comics, um, by a fellow named Joe, who is a longtime collector and brings a great perspective to things. I enjoy his videos and need to watch him even more often. John's Comics with Kids is a great member of the community. So, definitely check him out if you haven't checked out John Comics with Kids. And then I also wanted to give a big thumbs up to Larry's Library, a channel I've discovered recently. So, yeah, that's it for talking about the Newb tag. NammaN has another tag, like an annual tag. So I'm going to check that out and eventually do a video for that. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.